I'm Indra,
And I'm Amanda.
and we'd like to welcome you to The Messy Middle Matters. Hey, Amanda, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Today's topic is self-assessments.
It's going to be a fun one.
It is. So just to make sure we level set with everyone, self-assessments are tools that are an evaluation of oneself or one's action and attitudes, in particular, one's performance at job or learning a task. So it's really intended for an objective standard. So just so everyone has just like a working definition that we're working with. But Amanda, when you think of self-assessments, what comes to mind?
So I'm a millennial, and
Uh-huh.
there was a time where BuzzFeed quizzes were all the rage.
Mhm.
You take the
Yep.
quiz, you share your results on social media. It was all for fun. What Disney princess are you? What cup of coffee are you? Like, what pizza toppings, fit your personality? And yeah, like that is what comes to mind when I think of self-assessments and like personality quizzes.
Yeah.
Also, again, millennial, authors, viewpoints aside, Harry Potter.
Which house are you?
Which house are you? The Pottermore quiz. Which Hogwarts house are you? What did the Sorting Hat put you in?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just all for fun. You tell your friends and you talk about it.
Yeah, I think that the Sorting Hat is actually a really interesting because you see people, and it reminds me of one of my when I think of assessments, the scenario that comes up in my mind, like the Sorting Hat. For those of you not familiar with Harry Potter lore, the Sorting Hat helps the students decide which house they're going to be in at this boarding school. And some of the students are thrilled with their selections, and some of the students are like, "The Sorting Hat put me where?"
Right. I know
And,
the categories are like good, evil, smart, and other.
Right. That's how it feels when you're getting sorted, right? And
Yeah.
when I think of self-assessments, my scenario is I was working at TD Ameritrade. It was our first year having some interns from the Teak Fellowship, which is a program that helps people with great potential find opportunities, whether it's through school or the workplace or whatever it might be. And one of the tools we were using at TDA was StrengthsFinder. So talked to HR and I said, "Hey, thinking about doing StrengthsFinder with these folks, any concerns?" They're like, "No, that's great. Do you want my support in the conversation?" I'm like, "Sure. Great. I would love to. I could totally facilitate it on my own, but, would love your support." Gave this to these students, or these young adults rather. Some of them were students, some of them were young adults. They were all in different scenarios. And the despondency from some of them. So StrengthsFinder is a tool that helps you select your top 5 strengths. And like the hypothesis around StrengthsFinder is if you're not 6'6", it's unlikely that you're going to be an NBA star. So why don't you capitalize on your strengths and try and work towards something that aligns with your strengths, right? So all these folks really wanted, I don't remember exactly which strength it was, but they all wanted one particular strength, and most of them didn't get it. And they were so devastated because most of these folks are very community driven, wanting to uplift their community as they were uplifting themselves. And the one attribute, or the one strength that they all aligned with, that they're like, oh, they wanted it. And the HR person said to them, he said, "Just because you didn't get that as one of your top 5 strengths does not mean that it is a strength." Right? It's one of your top 5, but in that scenario, like I always think of it, and my chiming, and she gave a very professional answer, and mine was, all of these assessments are like a Cosmo quiz.
Right.
Don't take it too seriously. Like it's, Cosmo quizzes can be anything, including which lipstick shape is your personality. Like it's, it can get
Right.
really,
It's
really
like
silly.
the BuzzFeed quiz,
It's
right?
like the
It's like,
BuzzFeed
what
quizzes.
pizza topping are you?
What pizza? Right. And it's kind of fun. And anytime we would take those BuzzFeed quizzes, or even a Cosmo quiz, I try and see, like, if I change, how many answers do I need to change to get the one that I really want?
Oh, same. Like everybody wants to be in Gryffindor, right?
Because that's where the hero is,
That's
right?
where the hero is. So, you just change all of your answers to brave and, valor and, doing the right thing and you're going to be a Gryffindor.
Right. But it's but the question, it begs the question, like, why are we seeing so many personality assessments in the workplace? Like, it's fine on BuzzFeed, it's fine in Cosmo, like that's sort of entertainment, and it's clearly pseudoscience, it's not. if you even include the word science at all, the meaning of in a BuzzFeed quiz or a Cosmo quiz, but why are they showing up, and like when are they useful and what are they useful for? Because these young adults wore their heart on their sleeve, so you could see their disappointment.
Yeah.
But in the workplace, you may not always see everyone's disappointment when they didn't get the thing that they wanted.
Yeah. I mean, I recently met a bunch of people who I'll call them new colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like met them for the first time in person and
Yeah.
we got to talk about things that weren't specifically work related.
Yep.
And one of the things that came up without even knowing that we were going to do a podcast episode about this, without even knowing, one of the things that came up was the Myers-Briggs personality types.
The most famous of workplace and
Right.
or infamous of workplace
Right. Famous,
assessments.
infamous, the most well known, I think. And, everybody led with their personality type. I know that I'm an INTJ. I take it for fun every few years. I'm consistently an INTJ, right? And I think it's like introverted, forget what the N stands
I've got
for.
I'm an INTJ or an ENTJ depending on the day of the week, and I looked up. I've been digging out all my old self assessments.
Right.
I can see if
Yeah,
I
it's
can
like
figure it out.
I'm introverted. I'm whatever the N is. I'm thinking versus feeling, and the
Yeah.
J is judging versus perceiving. Anyway, like it's a good tool and framework. Like when you're talking to someone new, it's a socially acceptable way to be like, yeah, I'm introverted.
And it's a common language. I mean, I've also seen where it becomes weaponized. Like, what is your Myers Briggs? It's like, whoa, well, human beings don't go into boxes. Like, we have this desire to want to categorize and automate everything because it helps with a lot of different things. But no, I'm a human being. I'm
Right.
dynamic. In this part of my life, I might be one thing. In that part of my life, I might be another. But yeah. So
Yeah, and depending on like where you take, like which site you take the quiz
there's
on,
that too.
there's some give you a scale, right? It's just like, yes, we put you in introverted, but you're only like 60% introverted, as opposed to 90% introverted. And it frames you like on a spectrum, as opposed to like everything is black or white.
100%. 100%. So, I think that, I shared one of my examples that I have from my past, but, is there anything, whether it's a good example or a bad example, Amanda's choice? Do you have a scenario of another scenario? Because we've been through a lot of these different things in different workplaces that you want to share with everyone.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good or a bad scenario, positive
Yeah.
or negative, but it's a scenario that comes to mind. So I worked at a company that asked us to do the DISC assessment,
Mm-hmm.
which is also a common corporate one,
Yep.
right? It's 4 quadrants. It's DISCs. The D is dominance. The I is influence. The S is, I think, steadiness, and the C is conscientiousness, I
I've
think.
got clarity. I don't know. They're all, I took it yesterday. So
Right.
on site.
Anyway, it was a half day workshop. We took the quiz before the workshop and we used the workshop to talk about our results and have the discussion that's actually valuable. And one person on the team got a result that we were all surprised by, including herself.
Okay.
She read the results and was like, I don't think this is right. I want to say that the test put her in steadiness, which is, like the even tempered, the patient, the accommodating, the democratic. And she was definitely more the opposite end, which is dominance, right? So, direct and results oriented and firm.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes to mind because I think it highlighted one of the potential flaws of these self assessments, right? Like it's a self assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she just wasn't that self aware, or maybe she was just in a sharing collaborative mood when she took the test. Like, who knows? And like there are many reasons the test results were the way they were. And I think it's just going back to your statement of it shouldn't be used to identify you. It's just a tool to start conversation.
100%. And I've been in conversations or organizations where, and we alluded to it a little bit earlier, like where these things get weaponized. It's like, oh, but you're a that, like you don't get to do this because you were categorized as a that. Whoa. Like again, back to that basketball analogy. Maybe if I am, 3'2", I'm not the one who you should be putting on your basketball team. But there's a lot of gray in the world. Usually things aren't that abundantly clear.
Right. Right.
And there might be reasons that this might belong in a that, or you shouldn't automatically exclude things. Or, I think that when we're talking about this as a potential topic, you were talking about teams that use this as a vetting criteria for hiring decisions or promotion decisions for that matter.
Right. And again, like it's a tool. It
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be, I think that a director of whatever needs to have an INTJ personality type. And if you don't fit that box, sorry, like you don't have the qualifications. It shouldn't
Right.
be as rigid as that.
Right. And, I love a good theme. So today I'm using my astrology mug that a dear friend of mine gave me. Um, but, I think of it the same way that I think of the way that I react to my horoscope or tarot cards. Like as much as what the tool is giving me, it's my reaction to the results. That's sometimes like if I'm working with myself, like, we'll go into how working with teams, these are useful, but like working with myself is so much fun. Like that's where the juice is. Like, how did I feel about that? Ooh, like, like, is that true? Is that not true? Why might that have come up? You know?
Right. And I think, we talk a lot about self-reflection, right?
Yeah.
Sitting with yourself and really thinking about who you are, how you feel. And this is just another tool for self-reflection and understanding how you like to communicate or be communicated with, right? Is a really helpful detail to have about yourself and to be able to put yourself in one of these frameworks and talk about it with the people you interact with, the people you work with. I think allows better collaboration, and it allows a better understanding of you and the way you work with others, and vice versa, right? Hearing other people's disc personality types allowed me to understand them better and how to better work with them.
Yeah. No, I think that I love what you hit on there. Like I love any tool or resource or whatever that gives me language for something that I inherently understand, but may not be able to convey to others. And this is just another one of those tools that allows to do that. And one of the other ways, so my deepest experience, I mentioned it earlier, is Strengths Finder. I spent 7 years at TD Ameritrade, so I learned Strengths Finder there. And I've applied it in other places too, but where it's been useful is taking the results, and each of these frameworks, like DISC has its four, Strengths Finder has its, I think it's got five different master categories that these strengths land in, right? And taking a look at an entire team having everybody in the team take that assessment and then mapping the results on a spreadsheet and see, like, are you over concentrated? And I'll use the language that's in StrengthsFinder. Are you over concentrated in strategic thinking, relationship building, influencing, executing? Oh, there's only four there too. They've got four. But are you over indexed somewhere or under indexed somewhere? And that'll explain so much. You're like, oh, we are, I've been part of teams where we had little to no influencing, and we were wondering why we couldn't get the rest of the company to understand our objectives and why we wanted to do something, because we had no influence. We had, like, it was one of our weaker strengths. And like what we did then was to, when we were interviewing people to round out the team, not only were we looking for those practical skills of, can they do the job? In this case, it was a design team. Can they do the things that are necessary for platform X, Y, or Z? But do they have a little bit of, like, and we didn't have them take the assessment, but you get a sense for certain things. Like, did they have a little bit of woo there? Do they have somebody who has and woo is a strengths finder category. It's probably one of my favorite ones to say, woo. And I have no woo. But can we find somebody with some woo that can help us out and round out that skill set and round out our team?
Yeah, I like what you touched upon there, about rounding out a team, right? I find this to be most interesting, most helpful
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to cross-functional teams.
Mm.
So not just a team of program managers or not just a team of engineers, but the cross-functional team of people in, in engineering, people in program management, people on the marketing side, people on the sales side, and just rallying around this common language,
Mm-hmm,
this
mm-hmm.
framework, and using it to better understand each other and each other's motivations.
Yeah, and as you're talking, it also makes me think that it would give me the language. It does give me the language when I'm trying to explain to my team, why do we care about how the sales team feels?
Right.
Right? It's like, hey, these are all the skills that are necessary. Like, they're low in some of the things we're really strong at, but they're high in some of the things, like I said, woo. I'm sure that most salespeople have got a little bit of woo in them, right? To be able to sell that thing, and just understanding that we want to be well-rounded as an organization. And some of our client base will be also towards some of those things too. And wouldn't it be nice if they were represented in the room in these business discussions? Again, designers like all that kind of stuff, but yeah.
Right. Right. And I think, it touches on the empathy piece,
Mm,
right? It's
yeah.
like, once you understand that there are other categories other than your own, and truly understanding, how these people think, how these people operate, how these people like to communicate. I think it just leads to better collaboration across the board.
Right. And, the way that the frameworks lay things out, they don't, the best ones don't call one attribute better or worse than the others. They're just different.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just different. And so it gets a little bit of the, oh gosh, I can't think of a better phrase. It gets a little bit of the pissing match. Like, we're better than they are. They're better than we are. Like, we're just different. we're just different. Not better,
Yeah.
not worse, different.
Yeah, that reminds me of, we were talking about one of these tests. It's called True Colors.
Mm.
And I forget the actual category that this person was in, but the conversation went something like, I'm primarily a blue, which means, I value relationships and collaboration, and I'm really low on gold, which means, gold values structure and organization and goals, and that's probably a bad thing, right? And and it's like, no, I'm sure you can value goals and responsibilities and all of those things that make a gold personality a gold, but just aren't the traits that you naturally are inclined to.
Right. And, the more I work with humans, the more I realize, isn't it lovely that there's someone who is the opposite of me? They may not ever be my best friend. Let's be clear. I might need to take them in small doses, but I am so grateful. I'm going to go back to sales teams. Sales teams, they have so much energy to talk to people that I don't. I can't people as much as salespeople do. But I also know that my paycheck doesn't come through if they
Right.
don't sell and if my teams don't deliver the thing that they sell. So both of us are necessary, you know. But I
Yeah.
value them. I value them, even if I don't want to spend tons of time with some of them.
Yeah. When you said that, what came to my mind was, isn't it nice that there are people who are really good at math?
I love a
Because
good
I am
finance
not.
team too. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness, I love a good lawyer. I mean, there's certain things that compliance people, you just some people will have like an allergic reaction as I'm saying some of these functions, right? But I'm like, no, I love them. I love them. I love that they love to do the thing that they do. And I love the fact that that's not my job.
Right.
That's not my job.
I love the fact that they do what they do and they love to do what they do and they're good at doing what they do because I'm not those things.
100%, 100%. So I think that, um, you said empathy. I think that the other piece is curiosity. To me, that goes hand in hand with empathy, like entering into a conversation around these assessments with curiosity. Um, but I think that what we haven't touched on is, some of these tests and taking these tests are mandatory. And sometimes they come from our people leader, which has a certain weight to it, our people manager, the leader of our department. Sometimes they come from human resources or the people team. That comes with a different kind of weight, right? And it can feel um, a little bit daunting. It can feel like they're trying to stick you into a little cubby hole because in most cases, I haven't found that that's the case. Like in most scenarios, I have found that that's the case because I, in my experience, HR rolls these assessments out as a tool to help people managers understand their people better. Like that is generally their motivation around these things. And again, that common language, that common reference point. So the whole organization is using a shared vocabulary around things. But it can be a little bit scary and it can be really frustrating when you don't get your results that you wanted. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the takeaway there is don't attach yourself too closely to your results because like the example I shared, maybe you were just clicking the wrong buttons or you were just having a different kind of day or just thinking about the disc assessment in particular. um Dominance
mhm.
is a loaded word, but that's one of the categories, right? And
That
I'm
is a loaded
sure,
word.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, like, it's been a while since I've taken it, but I'm sure the statements on the quiz that identify with that personality type um, read something like, "I have a strong personality," and like words matter. Like that is a strong statement, and like for you to identify with that might not feel good or comfortable, even though that it actually is you.
So agreed. Like I took a disc assessment yesterday, as I mentioned earlier, just to you see what that one was like, right? See what the experience is like. And it reminded me of the advice that I give to people when they start to take the Strengths Finder. The Strengths Finder, I think it takes about 15 minutes to complete. It's one of the longer ones to complete. The questions feel redundant, but I think that's part of the design of it. But like taking the test, my advice to everyone is just plow through it. Don't think. Don't think too hard. Don't judge too hard. Just plow through it. It'll be what it'll be. And it's going to be fine because it is a Cosmo quiz. It does not define you, and whatever comes back is an opportunity for me to look at. And, like if they want to call me, there's an assessment that called me an avant garde. And I've got very strong feelings around the words avant garde. But I'm like, avant garde. Like, I don't identify myself as that. Like, I think of art and fashion and like they again, anyway, I've digressed. Don't attach yourself take that avant-garde thing. Okay, so they said I'm an avant-garde. Fine. Like that doesn't define me. I define me, you know? And if it is something that is being used in a way that's disadvantaging you, that's your opportunity to talk to your people manager, talk to your mentor, talk to your partner in HR or your people team. Different organizations call them different things, and say, hey, this is my experience of what's going on. Can I get a new one and maybe take a new assessment? Or is there a different assessment that would help me better understand because the tool is not serving me?
Yeah, totally. And we mentioned this before, but I think it's important to call out that it's the discussion that this sparks that's the value, right? Like
100%.
just coming to the table and being like, I'm primarily, a dominant type, or I'm an INTJ, and then just leaving it at that. That's not helpful.
What does that mean?
Right. That's not helpful. I think, just leading with curiosity, talking about it. And I'm sure I keep on using INTJ because that's the type that I am. And those are the letters that roll off the tongue for me.
Yeah.
But there are others who are INTJs and they're different from me. Like, your score on each of the categories can be different. And so I think it's just important to understand that it's just a framework. It's not, it's not an assignment of what kind of person you are. It's not set in stone.
Not a value. No.
It's not a value. It's just something to spark conversation and to get to know each other better.
Yeah. And I like that little bit of advice that you had there, like embedded in there. When someone says, and I'm an INTJ and just like leaves it, like, what does that tell me more about that? Tell me more about that. Because they clearly wear that as an identity. I might choose not to use my INTJ as an identity, or like I and E, depending on the day, like I said, but like I don't use that as my identity. They do. What does that mean to you? Like, how does that change how you work? What does that mean and how I should work with you? What does that mean when it comes to the things that you're really good at? Just create it as a door opening. Even if they just put the door up, it's a door label. Use it as a vehicle to open up that door and get to know them a little bit better.
Right. If they're an I, that memes they're introverted. What does that mean? Does that mean, don't talk to me at the team dinner? What does that mean in terms of how I work with you, how I communicate with you, how you feel about yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we will someday have a topic of introverts, extroverts, and ambiverts, because that's a whole nother type of those personality types. But yeah, what does that mean? But through that work, through Susan Cain's work, it is like, what does that mean to you is really important. How do you like to recharge? How do you like to work? Should I be stopping by your desk every 5 seconds?
Right.
Introverts, not so much. Extroverts, they would love that.
Right. Love the water cooler chat.
Love it. Love it. Any other thoughts or anything else that you want to add? I know that we like I said, we both love and hate. I've mixed emotions around self-assessments, but find them overall rather valuable. Anything else you want to add to share with everyone before we say goodbye to everyone for today?
Not really. Yeah, I too find them valuable if they're used the way they're intended to be used, just as a tool again. And I just think they're fun.
They can be fun. Yes, they're fun. They help me unlock my inner child of like, again, I feel like I'm sitting in a dorm room filling out my Cosmo quiz. What's it going to be?
Right. I'm kind of inspired to go on BuzzFeed right now and take a bunch of silly quizzes.
I like it. Let's do it. Anyway, thank you, Amanda, for being with me today and exploring the self-assessments. I'm going to figure out how to do my closings a little more cleanly in the future, but I hope that everyone who's listening joins us next time for another topic for the messy middle. Bye, everyone.
Bye.